guess.
So, I'm sorry I couldn't be here in person. Good morning to everybody. Unfortunately, my parliamentary duties require me to be elsewhere, but the organizers, Bishop Turkish, asked me to say a few words about the significance of the Hungarian Revolution of 1956. The first thing I want to say is that in Hungary, it is universally accepted that the events of October, November that year constituted a revolution. If you look outside Hungary, most people think, oh, it's an uprising. Why do they want to remove the status of a revolution? Well, interesting question. Mostly, I think, because it was put down very rapidly by Soviet military forces. But I still think that actually it was a revolution. It was a revolution because it completely eliminated the previous regime. Yes, they were restored, but in a different kind of way. Secondly, the overwhelming majority of the population of Hungary, Hungarian society, supported it. Thirdly, because all sorts of new institutions came into being, however briefly. The most obvious one, of course, the workers' councils, but the street played quite an important role. And I think there was a kind of mobilization, a sense of unity, a sense of community, which, as well as the theatre, of course, and then the fighting, all of which left a very, very deep mark on Hungarian society. In that sense, it was revolutionary. And I want to add that its revolutionary quality was always recognized by the communists, who always called the events of '56 a counter-revolution. So why argue with that? But I suppose the image of a revolution is the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution or maybe the Mexican Revolution. I don't think anybody's ever going to talk about the Great French Uprising of 1789, but you never know. The historians may revise their view after all. The second point I want to make about the Hungarian Revolution is that it's an extraordinary event because what happens is that the population of Hungary goes against geopolitics. In other words, what people are saying by their actions is that we do not accept Yalta. We do not accept that Hungary is forever to be under the control of the Soviet Union. We want to stand up against this. You may think this is foolish. I'm certainly told by many people in the years following that the Hungarians should never have done this. Some of them didn't know I was Hungarian. This is the time when I was living in Britain. But I think that actually it had a different impact, which is to demonstrate that communism was, at the end of the day, fragile. Communism could be broken by the readiness of an entire population to say, we've had enough of it. And let's add, it took a major effort on the part of the Soviet Union, a very large number of armored units and fighting, a lot of bloodshed, to put down the united will of a small country. I suppose the next lesson is that if a very large country wants to break the events in a small country and is willing to shed blood, there's very little that one can do about it. The rest of the world stood by, didn't quite know what to do. There's fairly good evidence that the United States accepted Yalta, accepted that this is part of the Soviet sphere of influence, according to some versions already on the 25th of October, so 2 days after the outbreak of the revolution, they told the Soviet Union that we're not going to participate in anything. The last point I want to make is, in a way, to ask the question, well, was it worth it? And my answer is that yes, it was. It was for two reasons. One is that it strengthens the idea that Hungarians can act together and achieve something. And what did they achieve? Well, a failed revolution is in itself a major event. And the consequence it had in Hungary was that both the regime and society accepted that there were limits to the power that the rulers, the Communist Party, could use. The Communist Party could never be legitimate in the eyes of the population, but it could be tolerated, it could be accepted, so long as it stayed within those fairly reasonably clearly defined limits. In other words, no more terror, no more mass mobilization. Let society be what it wanted to be, so long as it didn't do anything politically. All that changed, of course, in the 70s and 80s. The situation got laxer and laxer. But I think that the memory of the revolution lived on, and Certainly my memory, late 88, they sometimes let me into Hungary, sometimes they didn't. But I was there just before Christmas, and the feeling was the system is disintegrating, but let there be no bloodshed. Let it be a peaceful transformation. The peaceful transformation it was, that I think is at least in part attributable to the memory of 1956, and of course that had an after effect on whatever happened after 1989, whatever we want to call the events of 1989. System change, system shift, system transformation, we use all these words in Hungarian. Thank you very much for your attention.